Because these kinds of criticisms often start with the phrase like this: you always, or this is just like you too, or you never, you know? So you're not criticizing a behavior, you are criticizing the person. You are so selfish, okay? Like somebody changes the plans at the last minute. Instead of saying like, why did you change those plans? We made a deal that we were going to do this on this particular night. We were going to watch Gilmore Girls. Why are you going out with your friends? Why are you doing that? Okay? But to say, you always do this, you are dishonest, you're selfish, that is a direct criticism against that person, and that's not a healthy thing to do. Okay? Always criticize the action, the observed behavior, never the person. Okay? Secondly, this is related to criticism, defensiveness. This means that a person will deflect any kind of a criticism that comes their way. So instead of saying, you know what, you're right. I said we were going to watch Gilmore Girls tonight. We're going to do it, okay? A defensive person says, wait a minute. You know, I never get time to hang out with my friends. Like, you know, what's the big deal? You know, Johnny's in town. You know, we're going to hang out, man. You know, we haven't seen each other for a while, you know. Or defensiveness sounds like this. You were going to stay home tonight. Yeah, well, you cut out on me last week. Okay? We're not talking about what she did last week. We're talking about what you're doing right now. Okay? So defensiveness is when you cannot accept the criticism and say, you know what? Okay, I could see it that way. Or, you know, well, no, honey, you know, he comes into town once a year, and I honestly thought that under these circumstances it would be okay for me to break plans with you. Maybe I shouldn't have done it this way. Then you're dealing with the criticism, okay? But a defensiveness where you either go at the person for something they did, okay? Do you ever met a person like this? Have you ever met a person like this, a friend or in a relationship? They've done something wrong that's going to upset you, okay? They've done something wrong. Knowing that you're going to get upset, they attack you over something before that you can even get to the thing they did, you know? Like you come in and they broke something and you're like, and you weren't even necessarily be mad, and they just explode at you because they know that they're about to get something. You ever met someone like that? Okay? It can kind of drive you nuts. You're like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like I came in and like you did something wrong, but I'm getting like attacked. It's a defensive mechanism. Okay? Don't want to do that. By the way, as you go through the four, because you'll have relationships that maybe just have these two but not the third, and then not the fourth. These also, they're four signs, but they can act as stages, okay? If a couple's just at this point where they criticize, or even where they get defensive, that's an earlier on thing, okay? It will continue to go south if it's not fixed, okay? But the next step, and this is when things start getting really, really bad, is contempt, okay? Once you get to the point of contempt, you're pretty deep in the hole, okay? This is one of the things that Dr. Gott got really good at observing, is he would watch couples talk. And he wouldn't be sitting there, he'd be watching them like through a one-way mirror kind of thing or on a video. And you can actually tell, and I see it all the time when I'm working with couples, is that when the husband's talking and the wife's looking at him, and she has a look of contempt on her face, like a look of disgust, okay? Like there's an actual disgust towards who that person is. There's something of a veiled hatred, okay? They do not have nice thoughts about the other person as a person, and they exhibit that. He would watch this through the one-way mirror, and he'd see like the husband talking, yeah, you know, we went to Bali for the summer, it was real nice. And he's looking at the wife, and he'd have like a team, and they'd look at like her eyes and like her mouth, whether her lips were pressed together. And these are all signs of contempt, okay? And if that contempt is there, you got a real problem. It's not irreversible. I mean, it's reversible, but... And then the fourth, and this is really, when you get to this point, you've got a problem. And actually, you can, once you get to this point, it can be very hard to salvage it, okay? It takes an intense commitment on the part of all, okay? The fourth is what is called stonewalling, okay? Stonewalling. Stonewalling is when... Like the guy comes home from work and the wife just lays into him, okay, about whatever. And he goes, yep, okay, And he just completely ignores her and walks back to his room, puts the briefcase down. It is a completely ignoring, completely disengaging from the other person. So they'll be like, honey, I'm trying to talk to you. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And he's just like, whatever, see ya. Okay? I mean, at any point in a relationship, people can get hot and be like, you know what? I'm leaving for a while. I don't want to deal with this right now. That's one thing. Stonewalling is more that you enter into this and you don't ever leave it. You're just like, whatever criticism, whatever contempt, whatever, you completely disengage from it. At that point, when stonewalling is there, you are two people living in the house, living different lives under the same roof. Okay? That is a point where you're already practically divorced. You just happen to not have done any of the legal separation. Okay? Once you get to stonewalling, you've really, really just about crossed a threshold of no return. Okay? So you don't want to just wait until you get here to go to a marriage counselor. Okay? You want to like, if you start getting down here, it's time. Okay? Again, it's not that a couple fights. When Dr. Gottman did his studies, he found that there were couples who, he thought the more you fought, the more likely you would be divorced. He actually found that was not true at all. There was no correlation between fighting and divorce. It's how you fight. He saw that there were couples that were like really animated and like just like when they'd fight, they'd be like, ah, and they just go nuts. But they weren't being critical. They were actually talking about the behavior. They'd be like, how could you do this? We made plans, you weren't supposed to do this. We made a promise. That's a legitimate thing to say. They're just like really angry saying it. But they're not saying, you always do this, you jerk. Okay? Conversely, they had couples that were very quiet. They didn't ever raise their voice. They'd be like, yeah, well, you always do that. Just like your mom. You get things like that. And they're not fighting, really. They might drop a little snide comment here and there. They don't fight. And they'll go, we don't fight. But their relationship's in shambles. Okay? So it depends, a lot of it just on personality type. You know what I mean? And you got it when you date, you kind of find, what kind of fighter that person is, And if you fight healthy, you're going to be fine. You're really going to be fine, okay? You work through it, everybody understands, everybody apologizes, and it's all right with the world, okay? So it's how you fight. And so you want to avoid especially these two ways of fighting. Because fighting comes up all the time, even in the infatuation stage. Okay? Any questions about any of this stuff? Yeah.
That let's say you're with someone
Uh-huh.
and you see that they're pretty critical. How do you bring that up? I mean, without criticizing them,
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, I would say, so the question is, what do you do if you're with somebody and they're really genuinely criticizing you, okay? Well, how we are in relationships, okay, how we kind of naturally relate in a relationship depends on our whole history, okay? So we might tend to be critical because we watched our parents be critical. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of reasons why that other person might be critical, okay? You address it with them, okay? And so you would sit down with that person and say, look, I know that I've done something wrong, but it's been my observation. You don't have to use my way of speaking. That's my way of speaking. Okay, put it in your own. My observation. Guess why? I don't think there's any ladies worried they're not getting married to this guy. Okay, it's like, is that how this is going to be? My observation. No. But to say the way I see it, when you get angry at me, you don't criticize the thing I've done. You're criticizing me, and that really hurts. That really, really hurts. Like if you're upset because I'm coming home late from work, okay, and I'm coming home late and I'm just tired and I want to just have some peace and quiet, and you want to like engage, okay? It doesn't help me to say you're lazy or you're not a kind of, you're not, whatever. If you want to talk to me, address the behavior, and do that at a time when you're not fighting, Don't do that in the midst of like the fight or she'll go nuts, okay? You gotta wait for some other time. But the worst thing you can do is just say, I'm not gonna address it, because it's gonna get worse and worse and worse. A lot of people, if you're in that relationship, a lot of people say, you know what? To be honest, I grew up and this is how my mom and dad were, and I don't want to be that way. I had a buddy, who just like we talk and he would just interrupt constantly. And I said, dude, it drives me nuts. Like every time I start talking, you interrupt. And he admitted, he says, I didn't say you're so selfish, I just said you're always interrupting. And he said, you know what, he admitted, he goes, I grew up in my family, if you didn't interrupt, you never got to say anything. So he recognized it. And then it's like I could much more peacefully kind of remind him of that, and everything would be good, So that's what I mean. You got to address it at a good time. And most people, if they're open-minded and they're trying to be good, a good person, they'll recognize, you know what, you're right. I do need to work on that. And that's probably one of the big messages I want to leave with you guys today is you don't have to be a product of your history. You don't have to be a product of your family. You don't have to be a product of your past relationships. That's what I mean. You can really pursue excellence and say, okay, you know what, I recognize I do this or that wrong, and even though it feels difficult, I'm gonna try and do the right thing, even though it doesn't feel natural to me to criticize a behavior rather than a person. But you practice, becomes a habit. Okay, that's actually the key of moving from this stage into this stage. Is that through this stage you work through all of those problems. And then they hardly ever fight because you already know like how it works, Like I was amazed. I was telling your teacher I'm going to take my dad to a Giants Padres game up in San Francisco. We were going to go see the Red Sox, and my mom was like, "Oh no, we're supposed to help with the blah 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 that day." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Dad, just tell her no. Like just get out of that thing." and he was just like, "Nope, I already told her we're doing it." It was just like bam. He just. That fast. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's why you guys are happily married for 40 some odd years, You don't fight. You just said, okay, you're right, I agreed I'd do that. Even though my opinion was like, come on, dude, that thing, they were going to go help at like a polling place. Come on, Mom, get someone else, let's go, we want to go see this ball game, My dad's like, no, we'll go see the Padres. Yeah, okay. That's after 44 years of marriage, next month, okay? Okay, any other questions on this? Okay, do you want me to show you how to pick a spouse? You might laugh at my method, but it works. I'm telling you, it works. One thing I discovered, okay, actually before I became a priest, because I taught out of New Jersey as well. You find out you have these talents, like you never like picked up an instrument, and you find like, whoa, I'm really, really good at that, and then like you're like, oh, I never really, ran track. And you get out there and like you're fast, and you're like, whoa, like I had this hidden talent. I have this hidden talent where I am really, really good at writing people's online profiles for dating websites. Okay? Now that sounds silly, but I literally have friends that got married. Okay, I'll tell you, these two guys out in New Jersey, this one guy had been on this website for like a couple of years, like no luck. I looked at it and I'm like, you're doing this all wrong. Let me do it. Bam. Within a week, he met a woman and he married her. Not within a week. Within a week, he met a woman. He is now married to her.